Unexpectedly, as I was approaching, I suddenly became aware that I was going to become emotional, and there was a moment or two of tears as I was coming up the hill and saw them for the first time in 5 or 6 years. And it wasn't really sorrow so much as something wistful. And then when I saw the joy that was surrounding them and the energy that was here surrounding them, it really just made my heart happy, and it made me even happier to be here. I miss them dearly when I'm not here, so to see them again initially is just really overwhelming. And I was just walking I'm getting a little tearful now. Just walking with them quietly, and then became really, really happy to be here with them. And never did I imagine in my wildest dreams that they would find their way to a place like this. Like, I could not imagine a better scenario for their next home. And for me now to have an affiliation with this project and with the people here, and it's just really beyond my wildest dreams. I could never have pulled this off by myself. It was truly a magical thing that happened. These figures were built over the course of 3 years, and each figure takes about 4 to 5 months, depending on how well it's going. The sculptures travel in sections with the exception of Epiphany and Ecstasy. So, for example, Mbatu's arm comes off, George's arms come off, I believe one of his legs comes off. Ahmed, I believe, travels in one piece. Essentially, we in a warehouse where I have a 10-ton bridge crane, laid the sculptures down and built a crib around them. And then those cribs were picked up and put on big rigs, the big trucks. Those trucks were driven down to Long Beach port in Los Angeles, California. And I'm happy to say they went into a brand new barge. So it was clean, it was pristine, and they just rolled them right inside. And the interesting thing too is because they didn't fit into a standard shipping container, we had some special challenges and had to hire special people to prepare them in a certain way. But the barge went through the Panama Canal and then down to Brazil. The pieces again were put on trucks and driven up here to the reserve. After they arrived, I came down to just look at them and make sure everything arrived safely. Eventually, we ultimately had to use a tractor to pull some of the equipment up because the road was just too muddy to drive it here on its own accord. But we got things here. We made it happen. Patience and luck, I guess. Making the sculptures, of course, is very technical, but seeing the forms come together, and it's kind of like seeing them be born or grown, however you want to look at it. For folks to see them here is extraordinary because it's unexpected, and we do feel a lot of emotion and excitement for them for different reasons. For me, it's because I envisioned it and I built it, and it hurt me and I had fun, and it challenged me in so many ways, but I'm really happy with how the whole family worked out, how the kids, as we call them, came together. And for others to look at them and feel emotion and passion for whatever that means to them makes me happy. It could be, an association of joy, of sorrow, a combination, curiosity. So each sculpture has a name and represents a different type of culture. humble George. He's a gentleman. He's from the Christian faith and is rather traditional in a lot of ways. So having him, you know, kneeling down to worship this oil dark was the contrast of that was a really powerful thing to see. I had some trouble with George, I won't deny it. We had a lot of iterations with George. His proportions needed to change a few times. And again, he's not in a very dynamic posture, so there wasn't a lot for me to grab onto in terms of that really pivotal kind of tension, physical tension. But I'm very happy with his peacefulness, and he does seem very calm, which is, for me, not common in my life. I will say his hands were very challenging for me to sculpt clasped hands. Ahmed, who represents the Muslim part of the world, during the presentation of the first installation, he actually was crying tears of fire, sorrowful because of the environment and seeing the devastation due to the oil economy. Ahmed was a challenge because when I work on the human form, I really love to focus on the muscles and the twists and the turns and the tension, and he's really in quite a static posture. There's nothing really dynamic about his posture, which in itself is dynamic. He's interacting with the earth. He's very grounded. I think that dynamic for me is exciting. Again, you can't really see his face, so what is his emotion? We will apply our own ideas to that when we observe it. Physically, a challenge for myself on Ahmed was to do a completely symmetrical treatment on his skin. Epiphany right here is interesting because initially when I built the model for her, she was in a position with her back down, and in the last moment I took her model and just twisted her back up, and now she's in a posture of an epiphany. And she represents basically just that clarity and consciousness and awareness that we all need to get to be able to, for example, pull off projects such as this here and have an awareness of our environment and awareness of our impact on it. An interesting detail about Epiphany is upon getting her mostly completed, I realized she reminded me of my sister, who was constantly down on the floor playing with her dogs, and her feet were in exactly that posture. And it's kind of playful and fun for me to see her in that level of detail and have that recollection of my sister is kind of a nice detail for me personally. Mumbatu is representative of a culture or a religion where they draw their prayers in the sand. This is, now that we're here in the rainforest, he's instead planting seeds. He's planting trees. Mumbatu in particular, because he was a new experience for me working with wire rope or cable. I had a learning curve with him. That was exciting for me, but it was a little, moments of frustration, backing up, starting over, revising things, and I really challenged myself. I wanted to make him extra long and lean, much more so than the other figures. So these figures are 30 feet, and I believe if Mumbatu would stand up, he would be closer to 40, maybe 45 feet. So I really stretched out his anatomy. To do that on a form that's crouching down presents certain challenges and also a lot of rewards and frustration. Ecstasy was actually one of the easiest ones for me to see. That doesn't mean she was the easiest to build, but she was the easiest one to see. And looking at a steel pipe structure with nothing on it and trying to find the angle of the hip bones and the angle of the shoulders and how far back is the head going to go. And I actually extended her neck quite a lot to really emphasize how far back her head is thrown. Once I saw the hip bones in place, sculpting her was actually a lot of fun and really it was a dramatic experience for me, and she has a lot of fun twists and turns to play with in her posture. So that was fun to iterate with the steel and the muscle layer underneath the skin and the skin on the top of that. And again, you can't really see her face either. So it's something we apply our own emotion to. One thing I love about Ecstasy is standing underneath her, behind her, looking up, you might feel that she's just gonna fall right on you. She's just such seemingly in motion and very, very emphatic. I don't know that I would say she has a particular religion other than being a sun-worshipping hippie. Again, her name and her posture and the fact that she's up on her toes and her head is thrown back, she's just in a form of elation that we are returning to a place of worshiping nature and being harmonious with our planet. So another part of the installation is mother and child, and they are walking together. The mother's hand is stretched out over the child's hand in a symbol of passing on culture, creative energy, and compassion from one generation to the next. The interesting thing is when this piece was installed in San Francisco, my dad was in town to visit, we went to look at it, and we were listening to some folks talk about it, and one person said, oh, it's a little girl, and the other person said, no, it's a little boy, and another person that was with them said, I think it is a child and the woman she will become. In other words, she saw it as the same person, and I was kind of blown away because I learned something about my art in that moment. Like, as I said, people interpret things differently or in a personal way, and so I've never really disclosed what I think the gender of the child was. It's just child energy, and you know, we all had it at one point. Hopefully we still do. There is a lot of shock, and it's unexpected. It's very unexpected to come upon something like this in the rainforest. So, and watching that happen for me, to see that expression and is really rewarding. It's very, you know, to be looking down at this amazing landscape is great, and then you look up and you see someone who's just interacting in an entire, this giant statue interacting in a completely, you know, symbiotic way is really a beautiful thing. And folks are curious and they want to touch the parts and pieces they don't understand, because as you see it from a distance, it's an overwhelming shock. Then as you get closer and closer and closer and you start seeing, because it's all made of salvage steel, it's all recycled, reclaimed materials, and you will notice parts and pieces of things that came from your household or from your automotive shop. So I basically, there are forks and spoons incorporated into these sculptures. So in that regard, close up, it's a different experience for folks to see these repetitive patterns or these household objects incorporated into the figures. And I think it's something they can relate to in a way. It brings it home, as they say. This is absolutely the right place for these sculptures. And when it was first suggested that they come here, I'd never been to Ibitipoca before, to the reserve, and it seemed impossible that anyone was doing all of the work that's happening here with planting trees and educational programs and saving endangered monkeys. So it just seemed impossible, and I didn't believe it to be true. So I had to come down and see with my own eyes that this would be the right place for them. And the minute I got here, I knew there was absolutely no other option than right here. It's actually an honor to be part of literally the landscape of everything that's happening here. And the project at the reserve continues to grow, and it's a great part to be part of that. Yeah, it's an amazing connection for the art, but also for me, and just very, very eternally grateful for that. Do I miss them?
Yeah, a lot.
I miss them before I even leave. I mean, I know tonight when I walk down this hill, I'm gonna turn around and get emotional. And it happens every time, without fail. I mean, I have photos at home, I have pictures on my website, and it's not the same as being here with them in their home, in their happy place, and it's just such an extraordinary place to be. So yeah, I miss them. No question. Like before I even get down the hill, I'm gonna miss them. It's difficult for me to share what these mean to me with others. So to express how much these sculptures mean to me and why it's difficult to leave is hard. I mean, I have a few close friends who watched me build these over the years and who helped on some of them as well. And they understand, and when they know I'm coming here to see them, they get really excited for me because they know what that means. And so yeah, it is. I get excited to come to see them and I get sad to leave. So it's the same coming and going. Thank you. Thanks for making me cry again. It's okay. I'll leave all my tears in Brazil. This is their final home. They're not going anywhere else. So yeah, they hopefully will inspire people for who knows how many years. Hopefully many. Thousands.